Greetings and welcome to another video. Now this is going to be another off-the-cuff video because it really does work best for these kinds of examples. This one's going to be going over debugging techniques. It's inevitable. You're going to think you programmed everything in perfectly, you're going to hit the run button, and something's not going to work right. Something's not going to draw where it's supposed to, or it might not draw at all, or something might draw when it's not supposed to. You might get memory exception errors, no reference warnings, all sorts of bad things can happen. The key thing here to remember, and it's a little bit hard sometimes, but the key thing here is that the computer has not made a mistake. You have made the mistake. The computer is going to do precisely what you told it to do. So the core concept behind debugging is trying to understand the difference between what you think you told the computer to do and what you actually told the computer to do. You've always got to keep that thought in mind that apparently whatever you thought you told the computer to do isn't what you actually told it to do. So you need to go back and try to figure out what you actually told it. Now, of course, there are the inevitable, typo type mistakes. You forget to initialize a list, and so you get no reference exception errors. Or you use the wrong variable, or you type in the wrong number. There's always those kinds of mistakes too. But again, even those are sort of related back towards understanding what you told the computer to actually do. Now, the reason why this is sort of off the cuff is that I've got some, it's an experimental algorithm I'm working with, trying to experiment with terrain generation and some other procedural stuff. And the algorithm is broken completely. I'll show you what it does. We're going to hit play, and the idea here is I drop varying weights of data on here. So if I click on drop, and boom, I got my error right off the bat. I did one drop, and I've got argument out of range exceptions. Hopefully this time it'll actually drop a couple of times before it crashes. So there you can see, I dropped one, Here's a strength 2. I can tell by how it, squared out, dropped, and then it broke. So I've got a very interesting bug here. It's not fixed at any one point. Sometimes I can get at the first, sometimes it breaks at the first, sometimes here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Broke at 4 that time. And so I play here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I broke at 13 that time. So this is a good kind of bug to use as an example, because it's random. It seems to be random. It's just like, what mistake is it that I made? It sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. So the first step, understanding the error message that you are getting. In this particular case, I'm getting an argument out of range exception. Argument is out of range, parameter name index. So someplace in my code, I am accessing an array-like object. In this case, I know it's going to be a list. And the variable name that I'm using to do the index access with is, index, and it's out of range. So if I've got 5 elements, I'm trying to access element 7. That's not allowed. Now, in Unity, if I click on these error messages, it will give me a little bit more information down here. And so it takes a little bit of figuring out to read this, because it always goes from the high level to low level here. So system collections generic.list. Okay, so whatever this is a list. And looking through here, system collections list, list.cs. Again, that doesn't tell me anything. I can't modify list.cs. And we've got to sort of trust that Microsoft didn't ship broken code, so if the bug's there, I'm just going to trust it's not. Continuing on, here we go. Test script on GUI at testscript.ces92. All right. So let's take a look at this. And assets, test script. Yeah, fix that problem, whatever. Line 92. All right, so my error here is that I'm drawing a texture, and I am accessing, there could be 2 possibilities. I've got 2 arrays here. And actually, it looks like I am using, are those arrays? Okay, there's a list, which lists can be accessed. One of them is an array, data. One of them is a list, display texture. So since my error message is on a list, the error has to be within display texture. Whatever data of I is returning as a value, it's wrong. I can't have whatever value that's returning. And now the question becomes, okay, well, what value is it returning? The first step to this is I'm going to put, I could put in a print statement here. So I could say, before I get to that line, and you see I can already I have no idea why that's there. It's been a couple of weeks since I've looked at this code, but apparently I've already done this once before. This print statement will, it's a shorthand for either monoBehavior.print, because this is a static method, which is a shorthand for Unity engine.debug.log. Knowing this or knowing monoBehavior.print is useful when you are not inside a monoBehavior object. But in any case, what this is going to do is it's going to print that value out to the console, which is going to be very, very spammy. So we'll save this, hop back over to Unity, clear out my console log, hit the play button, and let's see here, prepare for spam. So there it goes. It's also like really slowing down the system too. I think that's also partially because I'm doing the recording and I'm doing this. And okay, this isn't going to work. Having this print out every single frame is being too processor intensive. Sometimes this works, sometimes this does not. So we are going to stop this. That's the one problem with game debugging, is that if you've got something that you need to debug inside a high density loop like this, it can get a little bit tricky to get your data out of there. So I'm going to comment that out. And I've now reached the point where I am going to have to use breakpoints to look at the code as it executes line by line. Now, we can't do this in Visual Studio. Unfortunately, I really like Visual Studio and its environment and the debugger and everything, but unfortunately, Visual Studio does not know how to talk to Unity as far as debugging goes. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go ahead and save this. I don't like having the project open in multiple editors. So I am going to close that out. I'm going to come in here to my preferences, external tools, script editor, and I'm going to switch my script editor back to MonoDevelop. And now when I open up my test script, excuse me, it is going to open up in Mono. Give it a moment to come up. All right, and here we go. So now what I can do is, first I'm going to go back into Unity, and there's an option on here, error pause. In other words, once I get an error, stop execution and pause. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get this running. I'm going to go over to Mono, and I'm going to attach the debugger. So I'm going to go to build, run, and attach to process. And there should only be one process visible. This is not normal for Mono, by the way. This is a customized version of MonoDevelop for Unity. So there should only be one process identity here. So I'm going to attach to that. Now I haven't set up any breakpoints yet, but I'm all ready to break into the code. So I'm going to come over here and drop. And I forgot to do on error pause, so I'm going to do that now. And so now it is paused. I can come in here and take a look to see what my values are. Or better yet, I can now put in my breakpoint. So I'm going to put in a breakpoint right here. I'm going to go back to Unity, And I am going to unpause things. And it looks like nothing's happened, but you can't see it due to it being off screen for the recording. But my MonoDevelop icon is flashing at me right now. This lets me know that, hey, your attention should be over here in this window. So I click over on MonoDevelop, and you can see now that I have stopped, I have broken into my code on this line. What I can do now is I can mouse over things to see what their values are. So I can mouse over I to see, all right, which I value am I on? Excuse me. I'm on I of 0. I can mouse over display texture to get information about that. Count equals 10. And so I can begin to form a little bit an idea of what's going on here. What I need to monitor is when does data of I exceed 9? Keep in mind, count 10 does not mean that index 10 is valid. Just like in C++, C# is 0 based. So my valid indices are 0 to 9, not 0 to 10. So what I want to know is when data of I exceeds 9, is 10 or larger, I need to break in to try to see what is going on with that. I got a little tickle in the throat there. Sorry, guys. So, what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to do what's called setting a watch. So I'm going to highlight data of I. I'm going to right-click on it. And, oh, right. And I can't, that's Visual Studio I was thinking of there. So I'm going to come back here, make sure I'm on the watch tab, click here to add a new watch. And I'm going to say data bracket of I. And I can see my value is 0. That's not too bad. And now I don't really want to stay in this for loop because my data.length, which should be a valid thing to mouse over at this point, so I don't know what its problem is. That's fine. I'll just add it into my watch values. Okay, that is really strange. All right. So I'm going to step over once. You can use F10. I can't use F10 this time because the recording software uses that to stop the recording. So I'm going to do a step over and step through the code. And this is a really odd little quirk. I've not encountered this before. It should be able to tell me what data of dot length happens to be. So I'm going to mouse over data, expand it out. Ah, here we go. Int 900. Yeah, I don't want to step through this 900 times looking for the problem. So I'm going to have to take a different approach than just simply stepping through and looking for when data of I changes to a bad value. For this, I'm going to change my breakpoint. I'm going to right-click on the breakpoint. I'm going to say breakpoint properties. Oops, cancel. And I can't change it while I am on that breakpoint, so let's step over. Right-click, breakpoint properties, and humbug, it's not going to let me change it while it's running. So, stop. Let's stop Unity as well. Breakpoint properties, there we go. So condition, always break is the default. In other words, if my line of execution reaches here, stop. I don't want that. What I want instead is when condition is true, and the condition that I'm going to check is data of I is greater than 9. So I'm saying is that when data of I is greater than 9, I want to break into my code at this point. And I just hit cancel instead of OK. All right, now I've got that set. Let's make sure that I am attached to Unity. Hop back over to Unity, hit the run button. All right, so drop. Okay, drop. And it's being very slow, partially due to the recording, partially due to the debugger being attached. So always one thing to remember is that the debugger will always cost you performance. Aha! And again, you can't see it because it's off screen, but my mono develop icon is flashing. That means I've hit the bug. So I'm going to hop over here. And my data of I value is 10 now. It should not be 10. So I verified that, okay, yes, it does happen. And I got to keep in mind, okay, what does data of I represent? Well, data of I represents the value that a particular square is supposed to be set at. So when I drop something down, I'm supposed to increase that value. And apparently, I don't have any sanity checks on things. Well, actually, it looks like I do. I have data index equals int mathf max data 9. So I shouldn't get a data of I value above 10. So let's see here. Update. Nothing changes there. Nothing changes here. What is my I value? 218. All right, that is within my index range. Sort of about midway in there. Huh. All right, well, I verified the data of I is going off someplace. And since it looks like the only place I'm changing data of I is right here, I can only assume that there's a problem with my logic of how I'm writing this line right here. So I am going to stop. I'm going to detach, stop Unity. I am going to remove this breakpoint now. And I'm going to put a breakpoint right here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say properties, break when condition is true, and I will say when data of index is greater than 9. And also, just to make sure, it could be an issue with my index going out of bounds, although that does not make too much sense since it should give me an error if that happens. Just to be on the safe side, every time I call drop, I'm going to print out my index value. Just to make sure. Never hurts to be paranoid. Yeah, whatever. Unity and Visual Studio constantly fight over the line ending format. Just either ignore them or accept the changes. It won't actually mess anything up. All right, so let's see what happens here. It looks like it cleared out my breakpoint for some reason. That was strange. Data of index is greater than 9. All right, attach back to Unity. Hop back over. Run the program again. And I'm just going to come back over here and make sure that I saved this. Okay, yes, I did. Always remember to save your code changes. That's nothing more irritating than coming over to test a change and finding out that, oops, I forgot to save the change. Okay, drop. And I broke in on the first try. All right. Oh, I don't need those two anymore, but I do need data of index. And I do want to see what index is. All right. What is level is the next question. Level is 1. I can't believe I stared at that so long, and on video no less, before I saw that. It's a logic error. Okay. And this illustrates the importance of using breakpoints to force you to realize where the problem is. And I've been staring at this line, Hopefully nobody else has picked up on this yet. But you got to think about, what am I asking here? I'm asking for the maximum value. So I'm going to compare data of index to 9. And I'm going to say, okay, well, I want you to return to me the larger of these two values. Well, 10 is larger than 9, so it's going to return me 10. And that's not what I want. Instead, what I want is min. I want the smaller of the two numbers. So if data index is less than 9, I want that. But if it's greater than 9, I want the 9. Now the other option is, I'm not really sure why I'm getting to 10 so darn fast. I shouldn't be. But that's a separate bug. So let's go ahead and remove that breakpoint. So we've got no breakpoints. Save our code. Go back to Unity. Stop execution. Start execution. There we go. You know what? That fixed a whole heck of a lot of problems with what I was experiencing. So now my algorithm works. It's still not giving me the results I was just hoping to get from it, but it's no longer bugged. Now it's working as expected now. Mostly. Okay. And so I'll stop playing around with that. That needs more work, quite a bit more work actually. So that's the debug process. Now, very often it's something very small, like I had max here instead of min. That was the problem. And so you just it's a puzzle solving problem of taking an educated guess as to where the problem is and then slowly narrowing it down. Notice what I did not do. I did not start randomly changing values. I didn't start randomly altering how the code worked. The only thing that I actually did that altered the code was put in these print statements to try and track where things were happening. When you are debugging, the last thing that you want to try is just changing values to see what happens. The first thing you want to do, always do, is do your best to try to figure out where the problem actually is to make sure that you're changing the right values. If you just start randomly changing values to see, okay, well, maybe this will fix it. Well, maybe this will fix it. Maybe that'll fix it. You're going to horribly screw up your code. And you might eventually kind of sort of fix the bug, but you're going to fix it in a really bad way. It'll probably break on you later as you try to add in more functionality. So you use watches to figure out what values are. You use breakpoints and you use properties to narrow down where things are. And just to do a quick sort of recap on this, actually this video is going on pretty long. I will make a separate video whose sole purpose is just simply to show the mechanics of debugging. How to set breakpoints, how to create your watches, step through code, things like that. So, until the next video.